Well, hello there. I'm going to go ahead and cover the code that I added today in checking collisions. So when you get this one open, you're going to get the starter code here, and it's got my old classic blue ships and a white obstacle and a black background. Please go back to your previous lesson, colliding with the walls, or the last time that you had your colors. Go get your colors. Copy those right there. Paste my colors. And I also know that I'm going to set my large font to like 45 point because for the lose text that I want to use, um, it, it my lose text will be too big, and I want my lose text to fit on the screen. There we go, and I just found what I want. So we'll grab that, and so then in my lose function down here in checking collisions, down in my lose function, just so I can even keep my instead of epic fail. Not that there's anything wrong with epic fail, but I'll go ahead and work with that one right there. And let's see, when I die, there we go, crashed. And I got my colors in here. All right, so I'm happy with how this looks. Now, that's getting it all ready. Now, let's take a look at the ship here. I want this thing so that when the ship hits it, if the front of the ship hits it, or if the top of the ship hits the obstacle, um, we're going to detect that collision. We're going to handle it. So here in the demo, we can see here that we can now fly right into the obstacle and we get a collision here. Everything stops, we get the epic fail. Run the demo again. There we go. Hit the top of the ship. The top of the ship also causes a collision. And let's see if I can. That was the top of the ship again. Nope. So I'd like to catch the back part of the ship. Sometimes you have to. Oh, missed it again. There we go. Caught the back part of the ship here. There are 5 locations, 2 here in the front, just above and below the edge of the ship, and 2 in the back, just above and below the edge of the ship. And then there's one more point that corresponds to the very top of my vehicle. Those 5 points are going to be the test points that I'm going to be testing for collision. So let me go ahead and get this back to 100%. There we go, back to 100. Um, it can be useful to push the console down so that you can see the whole screen without having to scroll the screen, just so you can see the whole screen. So grabbing that, you can leave the console there. Every now and then I'll want to throw something in there and then we can take a look at it. But otherwise, if you close it, I haven't yet figured out how to get it back. So I'm just going to leave it there peeking. All right. There are no new global variables for this lesson, for this exercise. Everything's going to happen down in the check collisions function. We already got the function call right here in the game loop. That function, the game function, gets called every 40 milliseconds, 25 times a second, and executes it. Checks the clicking, whether or not making our vehicle fly up or down, making the vehicle move, moving the obstacles, and as we've added in the last couple of sessions, checking collisions. So we'll blow past all that other code right here and get down to where check collisions is, and you're going to see that there is a bunch of lines in open space down here, and this corresponds to the many variables we're going to need to make to position our test points. And then another comment and lots of lines, and another comment and still more lines. And then there's our old friend if hit wall, call the lose message. That was from the last time that the last session that we had. So then there's one more function here called check element. This one will actually be really easy to code once we get to this point. It gets called by the check collision function. So the check element function is called by the check collisions function, and it's passed an element that is checked for is terrain and is enemy ship. So that's going to happen later too, when we have terrain and ships. That's all coming. So up here, before we even start this, there's another window I want you to take a look at, and it's right here. So what I've done right here is this square image right here would represent our vehicle, our little flying saucer. imagine the little flying saucer fits right here in this box. The bottom part of the flying saucer fits down here in this area where my mouse is moving. The window and our little alien are up here near. And these points that are dots with circles, these are all my test points. See that test points, a little dot with a circle? These are the locations that I want to test here. The one thing that we know, as far as exact position on the screen, in any frame, we can get this X1, Y1, which is the top left corner of our graphic. We can get that position, top left corner of the graphic, and then use that position and the fact that we know the graphic has a vehicle width and it has a vehicle height. And we can use that in order to create other X and Y values to help us generate the coordinate pairs for each of these where they are on the screen. So for instance, from X1, Y1, the next place I went to was X2. So I took from this point right here, where X1 is, all the way straight across. The Y1 value stays, and as you can see, right here, this is Y3, X3, Y1, and this one over here, the X value changes, and it changes by the vehicle width. We just add the vehicle width to X1, and we get that point right there. So we'll call that X1 plus vehicle width. We'll call that X2. And so this point, its coordinates are X2, Y1. Then over here, from our Y1, we'll go from our Y1 straight down this X1 value. Every point on here, look at that, X1, X1, X1. All three of these points, their X value is X1, just like as you can see over here, all three of these are X2 because they're all in that vertical line. All have the same X coordinate. It's the Y's that are changing. So here I got Y1 down to this bottom part here. That is the vehicle height. So down here I've got the coordinates are X1, Y1 plus vehicle height. Let's call that Y2. So we've got X1, Y2 down here on the bottom. Similarly, we form X3. X3 is the middle point between X1 and X2. And we get that with X1 plus the vehicle width divided by 2. And that gets us that exact coordinate. And of course, the Y1 is the coordinate for all three of these points. They all are on the same Y value. Lastly, we get a Y3 over here. This is the middle point in between Y1 and Y2. This middle point right here is Y1 plus the vehicle height divided by 2. I'm just calling it Y3. So the coordinate of this point is X1, Y3. It's these 5 test points that I need to get. And so I'm going to grab X1, Y1, which I never even test that point. That point's never even tested. But I get it because that's the anchor for the graphic. And I use it to get the 5 test points. Here's how we did that. All right, so now the code. Let the code begin. So our first variable here, got lots of local variables, a ton of local variables. Var x1, we're going to go ahead and use the same notation that I was using in that example. That's equal to vehicle dot get x. That gets the x position of the vehicle, but there's one thing I need to do to it. I want to subtract 1 from it. The reason I subtract 1 is because I want to be just 1 pixel off of the graphic. So my x1 value here it's going to be right there near that corner, but 1 pixel to the left of that corner. And then we'll have my var y1. That is equal to, let me just go ahead and take advantage of it. I can copy the whole thing and make a change. Control C, Control V, change get x to get y. Y1 is just vehicle.getY minus 1. And then my next variable, this is going to be x2. And x2, as I said, x2 was x1 plus the vehicle width. X1 plus the vehicle width. So I can just use x1, since I've already put a value in there, plus vehicle width And to this, we are also going to add 2. This is to correct for what we did to x1 and get me another point. That's just 1 pixel to the right of that other corner. And then var y2. Var y2 is y1 plus vehicle height. Let's see. And again, I'm going to add plus 2 to that. And our last 2 points, our x3 is going to be equal to x1 plus, that capital E does not go there. Vehicle width, copy that, divided by 2. That's x3, and var y3 is equal to y1 plus vehicle height divided by 2. Let me see if I broke any rules now. Nope, haven't broken any rules. Everything's still working. Good. Everything is still functioning like it should. No errors. If you have any syntax errors, the only place they could have happened would be right here. See if you can find it. See what you might have mistyped. The X has to be capitalized. The Y has to be capitalized. Got to have those parentheses there. These are .getX and .getY are functions in JavaScript. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use these 6 X and Y values to create the pairs, the ordered pairs we need, and we're going to get elements at those locations on the screen. So now we have a bunch more vars coming. So var, middle left element. Middle left element is going to be equal to get element at, and it's going to be x1, y3. Now, I only want to type that once. Let me hit the run code button and make sure everything's still running. Everything's still running. When you type get element at, it's got to have that capital E and got to have that capital A, because get element at is a JavaScript function. It takes 2 points, an X and a Y. And from that X and a Y, it returns any object that's on the screen at that location. And it's going to get stored in middle left element. We'll be able to examine that object and see if it's, something we're supposed to pay attention to. Now that I know that that line of code is good, I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to paste it 1, 2, 3, and 4 times here. And then the names are going to change to be changed to protect the innocent. So let's see, middle middle right element. We're going to get the element at x2, y3. And then we're going to have a bottom left element. So we'll get rid of middle here. Bottom left element, and that's going to be at x1, y2. And we're going to have a bottom right element. So bottom right element, and that's going to be at x2, y2. x2, y2, bottom right element. And lastly, we're going to have a top middle element. Top middle element, and that's at x3, y1. And these are the 5 elements we're going to be grabbing off the screen. And we're going to grab these 5 elements off the screen. There are 5 points that are right 1 pixel away from our image at points where you're going to have contact. and we're going to test those points. Now, this is where the magic occurs. I need to test these various elements that I just got. And that test is going to happen down here in the check element function. So I'm going to go copy that check element, get the parentheses in the word element, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paste that once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. And then I'm going to use my control key and I'm going to delete all those elements. And did you know you can do this? Just put all 5 lines right there and oops, look at all those terminators I just put on there. Sometimes this editor has some cool features to it. I want to feed each of these elements, middle left element. I'm going to copy that, paste it. I want to feed that middle left element to the check element function. Check element's going to do some stuff with it. It's going to see if it's null. If it's null, it's going to do nothing. But if it's not null, I'm going to check if it's tagged is obstacle. And if it is, well, we lose. There's a collision. Back here, middle left element, copy the second one, paste it, middle right element, copy the next one, paste it, bottom left, copy bottom right, paste it, copy top middle, paste it. Now that's going to be sending all 5 of these elements that I've gathered off to be tested by the check element function. So they've been sent. Check element function is going to pick them up. And even though over here they all have different names because they all have different elements that are being passed, when the function call arrives at check element, it just gets put in element. So, middle left element is going to get stored inside of element. So the very first thing I need to do here is I need to get a local variable called elem that I'll be making equal to element. That element that got passed needs to be loaded into a local variable by this function so that I can do some work with it. I need to take a look at it, check a couple things out. For instance, if elm equals null, check if it is null. Do nothing. This just sets us up to check if it's dot is obstacle. I'm going to grab that, Control C, for each corner of the UFO. So the else if, here's where the cool stuff happens. Else if elm dot, oh wait, I don't even need the dot, is obstacle, if that is equal to true, then I want to call the lose function. So down here in check element, we added that and that and this and that. And that is all the code that I added here inside of check element. But now with that code in here, everything should be working. And if I press the run button, I should be, yep, crashed. I ran into it head on, collision. Let me see if I can ram it. Ramming speed. There we go. That one I caught on the top middle. And let's see. Probably that one I caught the bottom right corner. Let's see if I can drop on it from the back. There we go. I probably caught the bottom left corner right here. Bottom left corner. And then let's see if I can, in order to get the top, there we go. Got it. The top right corner, top left corner. Got the top left corner right there. So checking that the collisions work all around the ship, that I can create a collision that happens in each of those spots. And that pretty much wraps up what we did here today. Isn't it cool that we can put these little emojis in here? I need to find out where you kids are getting these. That's cute stuff. I like it. Thanks, and I'll see you in class.